Summit. Right now, we want to turn to a platform that is so important, social media. And to tell us about communications and social media, we have our manager of that area, communications and social media. I have the pleasure of working with him almost daily, Diego Tumonque. And so let's give attention to Diego and his fine panel as they bring us up to speed on that.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the LULAC Summit. My name is Diego Tumonque. I am a communications and social media manager at LULAC National. I am being joined by three wonderful guests. First, I have Pepe Estrada. He's the Director of Public Affairs at Walmart. I also have Melanie Mendez Gonzalez, who is a content creator and speaker at Qué Means What, and also Angelica Casares, who is the creative lead at Big Oak Tree Media. So this social media training is really something that I am super excited to bring to you. I'd love to hear anything you have, any questions on social media using the hashtag LULACSummit20. But the idea of this training is really to understand how we can use it to mobilize our communities and really get connected. I know firsthand how social media can be a daunting task. It can be a little hard to navigate, a little hard to understand, but it doesn't have to be hard. And that's what we're here for today. So to get our conversation started, I want to go to Pepe Estrada, who is also here representing Mejor Contigo. Hi, Pepe. Could you share a little bit more about Mejor Contigo and what you're doing at Walmart?
Hi, Diego. Thanks for having us. Big thank you to National President Domingo Garcia and your CEO, Cindy Benavides, as well. So thanks for asking about Mejor Contigo. In 2016, we made the decision to create Mejor Contigo as a platform to recognize and honor the many, many contributions of the Latinx community to the betterment of our country. We firmly believe that the contributions of our community are critical to our economy and our culture, and they will continue to strengthen our nation for years to come. So through Mejor Contigo, we seek to contribute to the empowerment of our community so everyone can achieve a better quality of life. We are on this journey to assist members of the community, and mind you, I'm one of them, as also are my children, to achieve their full potential. We firmly believe, Diego, that we, not just Walmart, but our nation is better as a result of the relationships that we'll be able to establish with our community. We like to serve, and we like to build relationships with like-minded organizations like LULAC. The work that you all do is also work that contributes to Mejor Contigo. So in summary, we're better with you. Somos Mejor Contigo. Gracias, Diego.
Thank you so much, Pepe. And I'd love to continue to have you in this conversation and share more of your experience with Walmart or just those relationships you've built. But moving forward, a little bit more about this conversation, and it's not going to be much like a training you've had in the past, where it's sharing that information, giving you the step-by-step, and then giving you statistics. I want to give you more experience. The experiences are the things that drive our communities, that really share more of who we are. And on social media, experiences matter. And that's the one thing I want you to get from this conversation, if anything. So with that, this training, hopefully you'll get two parts from it. The first part is how to build your network. The second part is really what steps you can take to mobilize that network. And so you can use these steps however you want, whether it be for personal or for your LULAC council in specific. So from there, I want to give 2 minutes for Melanie and Angelica to introduce themselves and their platform. So Melanie, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
Hola, queridos. My name is Melanie Mendez Gonzalez, and I am the founder and content creator at Qué Means What. It is for education and entertainment, mi cultura y familia. I started this blog back in 2010 and have been creating content ever since. I call myself a multi-passion chaser. So I needed a place where I could share all the things that I feel passionate about. And what I found was that other people feel the same. And so we have been on this journey, this digital media journey together of creating content and building community.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melanie. Angelica?
Well, thank you, Diego, for inviting us today. I have to say I'm really nervous. Melanie, you did a great job introducing yourself. I don't think I need 2 minutes. I just want to say that, well, first of all, as you mentioned, the creative on Big O2 Media, me and my husband started blogging 10 years ago at quantawords.com. And we created many, many steps. The way we worked with Walmart was creating like was a mini pods where we can teach other creators how to blog also. Yeah, like I said, I don't need 2 minutes. I think if it comes up, I'll keep introducing myself at some point.
Thank you so much. So both of you started from ground zero, building up your brands and really starting out. And a lot of our councils may not even have a social media account, whether it be on one platform or another. And so I kind of want to keep in mind that let's have this conversation be for those who are starting out. And again, this is to build a network and then mobilize that network. And what does that really look like? How can we really engage that within our communities? So the very first step I want to really highlight here is choosing the right platform. So what does that look like? I want to start with you, Melanie, on how do you choose that platform? Do you look at an audience, or which platform really do you take a look at?
That's a really great question. What I encourage people to do is think about who they are trying to reach. Who do they want their audience to be? Who are they talking to? And then dig into the analytics of each platform, because they're all different. I mean, our biggest ones are Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and now TikTok. And each one of those has different demographics, and you can find those easily, looking online. And there's so many different social media resources. But think about who you're trying to talk to first, and then go there. When I started, it was just a blog. Like, it was just words, no photos, no videos. It was just publishing on my own website. And then I had to adjust because I wanted to go where the people were going. And so that's what social media became. So then I had to build the same types of communities on the different platforms. And I now create the content depending on who I'm talking to. So after all these years, yes, I have audiences on different platforms, and I think about that audience, right? Like, I think about my Instagram audience versus my Twitter audience, and that's how I create the content. So depending on who you want to reach is which platform I think you should consider.
Definitely. You mentioned analytics. Is that something you take a look at as a general audience of what the United States uses, or what is a way that our councils can kind of look at the audience they have in their communities?
So so every platform has some native analytics form. Plus, there are tools that you can pay for to get those analytics as well. And so here's the thing. I wanted to reach Latinas, parents, in particular, so that I could help them live their better life and take action around causes that we feel passionate about. So I first began creating content for them, and then I had to go check the analytics to make sure that that's who I was reaching, and then adjust accordingly. But yes, I do use them on a regular basis. And so, I know, most of my audience is in Texas and California. And then after that, it's Florida and New York. And so I think about that. I'm Tejana at heart, total Tejana, right? I could talk about Texas all the time, but I understand that my analytics, there are other people who are listening. And so then I can adjust on that.
Wonderful. Angelica, I want to go to you and really just ask, how did you start out? Did you take a look at your audience, or where did that lead you?
So 10 years ago, 10 years ago, there wasn't really a lot happening. The only platform that was there was Twitter. And there was a lot of chatter. There was a lot of conversation when we were there. That's where we started. There wasn't really analytics. We would just had to read what people were saying, what they were paying attention to, and the conversations that we're having. So from there, I think where actually my husband started, there was a lot of conversation. I think Latino Twitter kind of started, right? There was a lot of conversation about what Latinos were saying online, how they were advocating, how they were engaging, how they were coming across. He started with something called dichos, which is like Mexican sayings. And from there, we kind of seen that there was a lot more engagement. People really wanted to get to know where we lived, what we were doing, how we were using the platform. And that's sort of where we got started. But analytics is something that we do look at now because we are on separate platforms and we have the option now, right? Facebook and Instagram gave us that option to be able to use it. And so we're using every tool possible that all those platforms gives us.
Definitely. And you mentioned Twitter. What does the community for Latinos look like on there?
Personally, I don't use Twitter as much as I used to, but the conversation, so once upon a time, we thought Twitter was going to go away, right? A lot of people weren't using Twitter. We thought it was a platform that was going to disappear or that was going to kind of like go flat, the same way Snapchat kind of did. And so then the last generation came up and they started using Twitter, and obviously people like to use their words. So people are still on there. I believe the last I remember, they were getting a couple of 100,000 new users every month. So yeah, it's still a platform you want to use if that's an option for you.
Definitely. And Pepe, I want to go to you, kind of ask, what do you use the most? And which ones do you like and for what reasons? Is it more personal or professional?
Great question, Juan. So very quickly, I'll say that for personal matters, I use Facebook a lot because I have family in Peru, where I'm from, and we communicate a lot over Facebook. Now, in the US, similar to what Angelica said, a few years ago, we would use Twitter a lot to communicate, to share messaging, to engage with communities, to learn more about what Melanie and Angelica were doing, which, by the way, are amazing Latinas. And we're so glad we met them, because when we started Mejor Contigo, we wanted to meet leaders in social media, but not just leaders that were Latinos and Latinas, but that were also making the community better, right? Just like they both are making our community better. So we're thankful for that. Like them, I'm slowly but surely moving into Instagram. I think Instagram is a great tool to share short form video, to share some messaging, to repost messages that are relevant to the community. And you're seeing more and more Latinos on Instagram. Now, when it comes to conferences, when we used to have conferences, well, we'll go back someday to a convention center, right? I think during the conference environment, the conference moves at such speed that Twitter is a great tool for engagement and amplification during a convention. So I use a combination of both Twitter and Instagram. I'm more on Twitter than on Instagram, but we've noticed, like Angelica and Melanie will tell you, influencers are moving very quickly into Instagram, and Instagram live video and Instagram TV is becoming a very powerful tool.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. Instagram has become a very big platform, but even for younger audiences, I see TikTok being one of those. Do you have any connection with TikTok? Do you know someone who uses it? Pepe?
I'll answer. I took a stab at TikTok. I was really fascinated with it, especially in the beginning. I mean, actually back when it was Musical.ly, and so it was just like music and videos. And so I have been watching TikTok for a very long time, and I've made a couple of videos, but I'm still finding my way. But you're absolutely right, Diego. I mean, definitely Gen Z and younger live on TikTok, and I personally feel like it has become what Twitter was like back in the day. For when Twitter started out, a lot of it always stems from people want change. Yes, it's fun and they can express themselves, but they want change. And if you look at what the young people have been doing on TikTok, like that's where a lot of advocacy is happening right now. They're teaching each other. This is how you contact your Congress people. This is how you show up at your city council. This is how you support your favorite small business owner. And then there's the fun dancing, and like, this is what I'm doing with my family too. So it's been a huge platform. And so I enjoy watching it more than I do enjoy creating.
Yeah, I agree with Melanie, Diego. Our associates, yes, I know quite a few Walmart associates that are on TikTok. And it's amazing, amazing. We do empower our people to be on social media. And it's amazing how they're using TikTok to, like Melanie said, to teach each other. For example, when we talk just about COVID-19, there are these amazing creative pieces teaching each other why to wear a mask, how to wear a mask, why it's important to wash your hands. If you, we'll share some of those with you at a later date, but it's a very amazing tool for younger generations to communicate and share and do things. And you see how some of them are getting already civically engaged using TikTok in a very powerful way. I'll just mention that they impacted a few political events in the neighboring state of Arkansas and Oklahoma, but I'll leave it at that. But yes, it's very quickly becoming an amazing tool for advocacy as well.
And that's what we can all hope for, really. These tools that we can use for better advocacy, better connecting with each other. From there, okay, so we have our platform. We've decided what platform to use. How do we decide when to jump onto another one? I want to go to Angelica, if you can kind of share where you decided your brand was best for.
Yeah, so my audience engages, they're very specific on Instagram. They're very particular. They're like toddlers. I feel like sometimes they like me and then sometimes they don't, and sometimes it throws a tantrum. And so Instagram has definitely been, it's been a slide for me. So, but Facebook was like my baby. Facebook is the place where I've grown. Facebook is the place where people come out from the woodwork and they just engage naturally. It comes as it is. How we transition, or how I transitioned from Facebook to Instagram, was that I like imagery. I do better with images as opposed to words, or as opposed to graphics. And so it was a best suitable platform for myself. And then when they started doing videos years ago, I was like, yeah, this is for me. This is definitely for me. This is where my creativeness comes out. This is where I flourish. And that's how I decided. So, but if you're an organization, or if you're a brand, or if you're somebody else, I don't know, it all depends. Do you do clothes, or are you a nonprofit and you just want to get the information out to the public, the general public, or maybe the community within your surrounding neighborhoods? Maybe Facebook might work best, right? Because you can add a lot more information. You can add a lot more documents. You can add things that your community can actually use and utilize. So, but crossing over isn't really difficult. I think one of the best places what you can do is, if all your information lives on Facebook and you're using Instagram, direct people to Facebook, right? So you're going to put the website of Facebook like in the bio and keep directing people in that direction.
Definitely, and we'll come back to that point. But I did want to ask, I feel like for LULAC and our LULAC members, we are very well connected on Facebook. We have a lot of our councils who have Facebook pages. Our members are really well connected there. But it's a little hard to find that connection in other platforms, or finding more up-to-date information on other platforms. So I wanted to ask you, Angelica, if sometimes, when do we kind of know when the next step to go to another platform is? Whether it's trying to do that advocacy or making better connection. Usually when you know your audience, do we have to go to a different platform?
That's a difficult question. Here's the thing. If there's a new platform, right? Instagram came out, the first thing you want to do is actually grab your handle. You don't want it to disappear. You don't want somebody else to have it. You grab your handle. And then you put basic information. You put a bio, you put a link to the bio. Now, it doesn't mean you have to use it regularly, but if they do decide to look for you on Instagram, at least you're there and they can find you. I don't know if the generation coming up is going to continue using Facebook. But organizations like LULAC, organizations, they're small places like in different cities. They've been around for years, right? They've gone from newsletters to like delivery mail. It's going to stick around. And so you have to understand that social media isn't going anywhere. So you have to keep like moving along with it. My suggestion is just get the handle, put basic information. If they want to find you, put a website and direct them in that direction.
Thank you. That's really important. Melody, I want to go on a point that Angelica brought to us in terms of at least being recognized on other platforms. If you're not using, grabbing that handle and directing people to your platform that you use the most. For you, how does that look? How did you use your brand, and how do you make yourself recognized?
So when I am a solopreneur, right? So I have taken a lot of classes on how to do business, period. And one of the tips that I got very early on was to name your audience. And so I was playing around because I was like, well, what do I call it? Like, it's such a weird thing, right? Because first of all, I have an audience, like that feels weird. And so I was playing around the names with ¿Qué means what? And I decided on queridos, kind of like a play on words, right? And so then I was like, let me just try it. And so I would, get on and I would say, hola queridos. And it just became this thing. So one day I'm going to make a reel of all the times I've said hola queridos. But anyway, and so because it's become something that people will say to me, like when I see them, well, back when we used to get together in person, when I would see them in person, they would say hola queridos. And that's when I knew that it was a thing. Like that was, okay, that means they recognize my brand and who I am. So I kept it, I hashtag it, and I use it all the time. And I even asked, so I do some social media training like for clients. And I asked one time my audience, what did they appreciate about like Instagram stories, I believe it was. And someone actually said, we love your hola queridos. And so again, it was like reaffirming that that's what it was. So that's my suggestion to people is like, find what works for you. It might not even be the first thing that you think works, but the moment someone says it back to you, that's the thing. Like that's what it is. And then hang on to it and repeat it over and over. And in terms of being recognizable across channels, all of my profile pictures are the same on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, so that they know that it is Melanie when they find ¿Qué means what on any other platform. And I also encourage you, well, LULAC has colors. So if you have brand colors, use your brand colors as much as possible across the platforms as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much. You mentioned repeating and making sure that people know your brand. How else can we kind of show that consistency, not just on our profile pictures, but the way we post, for example?
So I would say, Pepe mentioned Mejor Contigo at the beginning of this, and I would say think about your own campaign, so to speak, as to what do you want to be known for. And so like partnering with Walmart with Mejor Contigo, that's something else that has become recognizable. So thank you, Pepe and Walmart, that people will repeat back to me, like Mejor Contigo moments. And so if you can think of what is that for your organization, then do that, because that will translate across platforms. So like Angelica mentioned visual and video on Instagram, create that content for Instagram, and then create the different tweets that you need on Twitter, but all with the same messaging. And then the same thing on Facebook. So as long as your message is consistent, you can do that in different ways on different platforms, but the core of the message has to be the same everywhere. So like you can't talk about healthy eating on one platform and then talk about, not healthy eating on another platform. But do you know what I'm saying? Like the message has to be consistent and be the same. And so what I offer to people is when they're struggling to figure out what is that message, is think about who you are authentically. And what that means is, who are you no matter the circumstance? Like no matter COVID-19, no matter virtual learning, no matter election season or not, like Who are you? What is that message? And that's the message you want to spread across platforms to be recognizable.
So powerful. Thank you so much. The one thing about LULAC that I really enjoy is using hashtags to kind of bring together our community. And one of those ways is just sharing something that is recognized and everyone can use. So I do want to share with everyone that for LULAC National, what we do end up using to bring in our members and really call to how we are a collective, we use hashtag #WeAreLULAC. And so if you want to take a moment, please share the sessions, share all about LULAC and what the summit has brought to you on social media. So from there, Pepe, I want to go to you and really ask, maybe you were there when Mejor Contigo was created, but what does that hashtag mean? How is it unique? And how does it bring us together?
Great question. And yes, I was there when that happened. That was in 2016. So what we looked was, we looked very closely at the Latino community in the US, its history and what it's done and what it hasn't done for the nation. And then we very, very quickly realized, Diego, a few things. One, we realized that as a company, our survival depends greatly on the Latino community. We realized that the labor force of the United States depended greatly on the Latino community. The largest entrants in the labor force are Latinos and Latinas. Already in schools, the majority of children in grades K through 6 are Hispanic. So we very quickly realized that the nation had an option to either engage with the Latino community and become an even better country for everyone, or ignore the community at its own peril. So we said, okay, the glass is half full. So if we engage with the community, we're going to be a better nation. So working with an agency that we have owned by Latinos, República Havas, we brainstormed this, and I remember very clearly Jorge Plasencia, I'll give him credit. He said, well, that's easy. It's Mejor Contigo because we're better with the Latino community. So that's how it started, Diego. That's where it came from. We realized it made so much sense when he verbalized our thoughts into Mejor Contigo, because we are indeed, somos Mejor Contigo. I mean, you tell me if we're not. I mean, I firmly believe our nation is better with us.
And I do too. Thank you so much. I want to go back and share. Right now, we talked about choosing the right platform, being recognizable, and the next step really is to centralize your information, use the platforms effectively for whatever purpose it may be. So I want to go to Angelica and ask you, how did you use your platforms? Are you using one that is more informational? And how do you link to that one?
So we do one that is definitely more informational. Our audience just happens to be slightly older. When they moved over from Twitter, they went to Facebook, and that's where our audience actually lives. Now, we have audience that strictly uses Facebook. That's it. We've grown our audience there, and we understand what they like and what they don't. So we do. That's the platform we go to. Our information stays there. Again, I think Facebook tends to be easier to the user. It likes us, which is why we use it often. So yes, we do. We centralize all of our information on Facebook.
And do you use a link in your bio? How do you do that?
Our link from Instagram and other places?
Mm-hmm.
We do. So first of all, we use something called like beignets. So we do a podcast and then we condense it into something very small and unique, about 4 to 5 minutes, create those, use Instagram, put it on IGTV, use the reels, right? They just rolled out. We use the stories. We make sure we utilize all the space, all the capabilities and all the assets that Instagram is giving us. So we can then switch them and push them through to Facebook, where they can actually listen to the entire podcast, or we push them through to like the Apple Podcast service, where they can listen entirely to the hour and a half. Once our camera shuts off and it's done with us and they want to continue listening to us, that's where they can hear us. And then that's when we know like our listeners are, because as Melanie said, she has this Hello Queridos, right? We actually have people who mention us or who mention things that we said at the very end of a podcast, like an hour and a half in. And we're like, oh, you're actually listening. You're actually paying attention to what we have to say. And so we greatly appreciate that. And we give incentives if they're there, if they reach there and they're like, they really get to know us. They get to know us like the insides and outs of the things that we do. The more incentives we give, the more I realize people like to listen, right? Because it's like it's this secret. Not everybody knows, not everybody's paying attention, but they're little nuggets that we spread around all our platforms, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.
Melanie, going to you, I want to ask how, since you started in blogging, how do you link your website, if that's one way that you use information?
I link my website every single place I can put a URL. So it's very true. It's just something I learned really early on when we were in the early days of blogging. It was drive traffic to the website, drive traffic to the website, drive traffic to the website. And I still do that. And I think it's still relevant because a lot of people are, business owners are trying to drive traffic to the website to make sales. Organizations are driving traffic to the websites to get people to take the action, right? The call to action. And so what is great about the social media platforms is they all have a place for you to put a URL to connect with your to tell your audience where to go, right? And I do encourage everybody to have your own URL because you don't know, like we already know right now, like with TikTok, it's on a, we don't know the future of it. And it was the same. The other social media platforms have just gone away. And so that's why I encourage people to always have their own URL. Even if it's just a landing page, it's something that you own. And so you can always be in control of what lives there. So in your Twitter bio, in your Instagram bio, in your Facebook about page, put your URL there. And I mean, that's what I've always done. So even when I'm doing other campaigns or I'm trying to get them to do something, I have, like, for example, on Instagram, you'll see on my URL, it says getmeansweat.com/Instagram. And that is my website. So it's not a third-party website. That's my website. And then on that page, I have where my latest blog post or the call to action that I'm asking you to take, or you can connect with me, or you can listen to the podcast. But the idea is to have a place that you own so that people can always see you there.
Thank you. Yeah. And really, you don't have to have a website. A lot of our councils don't have a website. I think sometimes even just leaving a point of contact where they can get more information would really help. Do you sometimes find that there's other ways to give information or direct them somewhere else?
Well, I think when you're trying to centralize it, there does need to be something. So even if it's like, if it's an email address, right? Like if you're not using a website, have one universal email address, right? Like local LULAC chapter at Gmail, or I'm not sure what LULAC uses, but whatever that can be. And that way, when someone clicks on it, they can send the email to them, and then you can reply exactly to, send them like your one pager, like this is what we're doing, this is what's coming up, and this is what it is. But yeah, in terms of like centralizing, the platforms themselves do lend for some of that. Like they do give us some spaces in our Facebook. Angelica's right. Like Facebook, in terms, like they're the king, right? They know what they're doing. They give you a whole page for about. And so that in itself is its own mini website. But the other channels, they only give you a certain amount of space. And so you have to be very mindful of what that is. So if you don't have a website, I guess I would encourage you to use your Facebook page, since that has the most real estate. And then maybe on your other, on your Twitter and your Instagram, use that URL for your Facebook page.
Yeah, that's really, really great, because it's not only about trying to link, but using it as effectively and filling it as much as possible, from what I'm understanding.
Yes, absolutely. Fill out everything. That's another key to it is, and I think Angelica mentioned it earlier, like fill out everything. Like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they created their platforms for them to be used a certain way. Nothing is there by mistake. So use every inch of real estate they give you.
Definitely. Now, we're about halfway through, and from our initial conversation, we were talking about how to build your network and how to use platforms effectively. Moving forward, I want to talk a little bit more about what does that network look like? How can you engage them and really bring them to action? So casually, Pepe, I want to ask you, what do you use your platforms for? How do you post? What do you usually post about?
So excellent question and makes total sense. So if you look at my Twitter handle, you will see one thread that moves along it consistently, and it's about leadership and empowerment. I share information that help people strengthen their leadership, and I share information that hopefully empowers others to achieve their dreams, independent of whether every now and then I sprinkle Walmart messaging or what have you. The consistent thread is leadership. And I use hashtag leadership or hashtag Latino empowerment, hashtag Latina empowered Latinas. And then I see that I attract an audience that's interested in that kind of content, because people will follow hashtags and then they'll find you. So that's how I use Twitter more often than not. Facebook, like I said, I use that to communicate with my family. I use that to my own personal activism. So you'll see some of my political statements. You'll see some of my human persona there, if you will. and then on Instagram, I'm starting to build a following, but it has to do also with empowering others. Like I love to travel. So you'll see some threads about travel on my Instagram feed. And then I'm also lifting my voice like others. You know, unfortunately, the murder of Mr. Floyd has brought a lot of things to a head. And the silver lining for me is that it's helping myself and others find our voices and speak up and say basta, right? We need to change some things. So that's more or less how I use my my own feeds, Diego, and I encourage everyone to do that. And I can't say more. I think Melanie called it out very clearly. I think that the website is going to be key, because the website will stay. Social media channels come and go. We don't know, like Melanie said, what might happen or not with TikTok. It might be here forever, and that's fine. But let's all have websites, because I think that's where we can deposit the information that people can go then and consume.
Definitely. And you mentioned George Floyd, where so many people were so moved to really go out on streets and post something and to take action. I want to go, Angelica, how did George Floyd's story or any other stories that really pushed you to activism guide the content that you put out?
God, if I can take a sip of water for this one, because it's a mouthful, and I'd hate to do it injustice. But the way we seen it as, we knew the injustice to the Black community for a very long time. We understood that. Right? Rodney King kind of came and went. They thought there was going to be change. There wasn't change. And the service to the Black community continued. We actually had to take a very long pause for ourselves and really understand what we were missing. What is it that we weren't doing, and how we could switch to advocate more for the Black community. And it brought up conversations with ourselves, right? So we started to talk about colorism. We started to talk about even nuances, little words, morenita, prietita, you know, güera, all of these words that we were using that we understood had negative undertones. We understood that they did stem from racism. So when we did a small podcast on it, me and Juan, we had to take a step back and understand we didn't want to, what we weren't trying to do was say, hey, we're the same, because we understand we're not the same, but we do understand how there is colorism, but the Black community is suffering. Giving them a voice, letting them use our platform to be able to amplify that voice is what we really, really wanted to do. And so I hope we did it in a great way. It's still an ongoing conversation. It's still something we're doing now. It's not an overnight thing, right? It's something that's going to continue. The conversation has to keep taking place.
Yeah,
Exactly. And you mentioned that it keeps going, and we really have to think outside the box how to keep it going, whether it be with George Floyd's name or a different way. But Melanie, I want to go to you and give you a chance to say how you ended up going about George Floyd protest and sharing his story. And how do we keep it going? What do you think we can do?
So I tried to watch what was happening and be mindful of the things that I was sharing. I scrapped what I had planned to post because everything just seemed not important. And then I shared, so I'm a homeschool mom, and so I shared other Black teachers and homeschoolers on my platforms to help elevate what the Black moms and teachers were doing, because that's who my audience, I felt most my audience would relate to in terms of like introducing any of the Black community to my audience. Not that they need to be introduced, but I was trying to do my part. And then, so I feel, Diego, like I have trying to have been having this conversation for a while. So as a homeschool mom, I've particularly chosen a social justice curriculum to teach my boys. Mm-hmm. And then that spills over into my social media content. And so I have these conversations, and so I just try to amplify that more, right? Like, for example, I try to bring awareness to parents that don't let your children's, if you're non-Black children, Black children, don't let the first time that they're introduced to Black Americans in school or history be about slavery. Like, Africa is so beautiful and there's so much history, and they're all so much more than Black Americans as slaves. And so it's our responsibility, because parents are the first teachers. So those are the conversations I just kept trying to elevate. Like, there's so much more that we could be doing within our own homes and talking to our own kids about that will make a difference. And like Angelica mentioned, like, just think about how does it affect you? So I talk to parents a lot, right? But I always say, like, how is this affecting your personal life with your kids? Have you been dancing around the conversation of colorism? Don't, like, sit down and have it. And the other thing is to empower our parents to first understand our kids understand way more than what we give them credit for. And it's time for us to sit down at the table and have those big conversations with them, because they're ready. And if we don't, someone else will. And that's how they end up hearing about Black Americans as slaves for the very first time, rather than their beautiful, rich history that they have. And so those are the ways. So if you're not a parent, then look at the other parts of your life as to how this conversation is affecting you in your daily life, and then be brave enough to have those conversations.
And that's what social media really does. It is a conversation starter. You can ask the hard questions, and whether people really answer them, at least they are exposed to it. And that's the key, I think, from what I'm hearing. And I want to continue the conversation with that and ask, Pepe, was there some way that you started connecting with other people other partners or with other Black organizations through this hard time and through social media?
Yes, absolutely. I think not only because of the murder of Mr. Floyd, but also because of the murder of Vanessa Guillen, other social media influencers that were also talking about this, starting to reach out, which was amazing. We even got on conference calls to talk about things that we might be able to do as citizens, as individuals. So it created a very powerful dynamic, Diego, where we were all of a sudden communicating more deliberately on what to do and how to use this. Yes, I think a lot of us were upset, we're angry, how to use that energy to make change. So now we're looking into making sure that we all respond to the US Census and making sure that we are all, those that can register and to vote and then show up and vote. So we're quickly trying to use that, to pivot that, move that energy into action, right? You talked a lot about how to build your network and mobilize it. So we're trying to funnel now the conversation and use the momentum to say, you know what? We can change things if we all of us that can stand up and register and vote. I mean, nothing should stop us on November 3rd from voting, whether that be in person or by mail-in ballot. So yes, absolutely. It was amazing, Diego, how I started getting calls from different Latinx influencers to talk about these things. Just as recently as yesterday, I had a conversation with an influencer out of Austin, Texas, a veteran, disabled individual. He has a podcast. Same thing. We had a very long conversation on what is it that we can do as individuals to make change happen. So those things are happening as we speak, Diego, and it's a beautiful thing.
Exactly. And Angelica, I want to go to you. How do you work with partners, and what can we do better about reaching out?
How do we work better with partners in terms of?
Yeah, not always being the one to be asked, but proactively asking people to partner with you.
Well, I think first, developing a type of relationship. I don't know about you, Diego, but I don't like cold calling. So I don't know if I don't know if others would be interested in me cold calling. I think developing relationships with the individuals that you actually want to work with. So whether that's jumping on like Pepe, like if you're on Twitter and you want to engage with him, what better place than engage with him on Twitter, right? Mentioned he has an Instagram. You might want to go find him on Instagram and see what it is he is posting and commenting to get to know who he is. So maybe in return, he might do the same favor and get to know you a little bit. And then that's when those little things, those little compartments, those little Legos start to take place and you start to build a relationship. And then sometimes there's opportunities where they actually think of you and they're like, oh, you know what? I've seen this person online and they actually she talks about this. She talks about, recyclable fashion. And we have this new material that's coming in from recyclable fashion. Let me reach out to her and let's see if she's interested in maybe collabing with us. That might mean like paid, that might not be paid, that might just be in product. It might just be actually having the conversation like here, like coming on to a Zoom call and doing a podcast or something. But yeah, I think getting to know the individual first, or the brand especially to begin with, the brand, period. And then getting to know the little individuals and to see if you're a fit. The brands usually have personalities and they have names and they look like Pepe.
Definitely. Melanie, I want to go to you real quick. We're a little bit short on time. It's about to end, and I want to give a moment for each of you to give closing comments. But Melanie, the importance of cultivating a community and really working off of the relationships that you already have. How do you find it easiest to engage those relationships and build that community?
So I find it easiest when I think about who is closest to me and can I go to where they are. So things like the census. I guess because of the things that I have been sharing online, like apparently it's pretty obvious that I am civically engaged. So then when people share things about like the census, I'm immediately like, how can I help, right? So like right now I'm on a committee with our Hispanic Chamber of Commerce to help get the word out. That's just because I am doing what I normally do. And then when the opportunity is there, I ask for it. I get a lot of no's. Like Angelica said, you cultivate that relationship, but then make the ask. It's not going to always be like, yes, yeah, totally. This is that. It's not all mejor contigo Walmart magic, right? And that's okay, because when it happens, it's really beautiful. But you don't get to those yeses until you get through a lot of no's. And almost never means no forever. It's just like no right now, because that's definitely happened across my career, where I wanted to partner with someone and I'd asked for it and it was no, but then a little while later, they see a right opportunity for us to work together, and then we partner. So I try to just always be there and meet them where they are whenever possible.
Exactly. And Pepe, can you bring us to a close and share just any words of inspiration? How can we use social media more effectively?
Thanks, Diego. Thank you for having us. I think we all need to engage. Latinos are predominantly on Facebook and Instagram, so I think we all need to have handles there. Follow people that are like-minded. Ignore the negative, or a lot of negative is going to be thrown at you. And it's not just sufficient with posting, but every platform has an opportunity for you to weigh an opinion regarding whatever was posted. Share your opinion, identify yourself, and then platforms have also private messaging functions. Use them. I mean, I've gotten private messages out of the blue saying, hey, I saw this post, can we go on the phone and talk? And sure. I mean, on social media, I think we're more open to conversation. So engage, and make sure that your handle is across all platforms. I think Angelica and Melanie both said the same thing. Once you decide to go with your social media, get your handle across all platforms, including Pinterest, all of them. Just make sure your brand is out there. But do engage, be active, comment, share your opinion, not just post.
And where can people find you on social media?
Well, myself, my handle is @ESTPepe. EST for Estrada and then Pepe. That's my handle.
Wonderful. Angelica, can you share some words of inspiration?
Sure. I had a friend yesterday so sometimes, you know how sometimes we tell you consistency, post. I hadn't been doing that for a while. And she told me, she was like, Angelica, give yourself grace. So that's my words of wisdom. Give yourself grace. If you're not on the platforms and you're just using them, maybe just comment and, stay a little bit alive. But that's basically it.
Thank you. Where can people find you on social media?
So on 2 handles, it's Crafty Thrifter, and then it's Juana Words.
Perfect. Melanie, any words of inspiration for us?
Absolutely. When you're on social media, be sure that you provide value before you ask. So if you're continually giving value to the people who are following you, then when you're ready to make an ask of them, they're happy to do it. Pepe and Angelica said it best, like engage with people, use the tools that are there in the native apps. And you can find me at Can Means What. I know we're running out of time.
Thank you so much to each of you. I really appreciate the time that you've taken and the wisdom that you really shared. It doesn't have to be all about the numbers, the analytics. And I think that's what I want each of you to take from this conversation. Just talk about it. Talk about how you're building that community on social media. You can do that by following these steps. Again, I want to repeat them. It's choosing the right platform, really recognizing how to use them effectively by centralizing your information, and then just being recognized, giving people that information on your council or about who you are, what you believe in. And the second part is engaging, building that community, really connecting, and thinking about the content that you share. The other ways that you can build that community are through hashtags, through just commenting, as everyone mentioned. So the big idea for this conversation is, how do we grow spaces of community? And I want to thank all of you for joining us.
Thank you, Diego.
Thank you.
Thank you.